Hello. I just went and saw They Will Kill You, and I absolutely loved this movie. I thought it was so funny. My dad compared it to Bill Kill, but I've never seen Bill Kill, so I can't make that comparison. But I just thought it was hilarious. The plot was ridiculous, but it works. And the blood is over the top and dumb, and the plot is stupid. And it's just like it works with being ridiculous. I kind of have to compare it to Ready or Not because like Ready or Not 2 just came out, and also I literally just saw the first Ready or Not movie last night for the first time. So I'm sort of like have to compare it to the two, but I'd say that They Will Kill You is Ready or Not, at least in my terms, the first one, if it had bigger balls. I thought it was so funny and stupid and ridiculous, and I also really like the storytelling that it did because it's like it takes you from like talking about Asia and like the flashback of when like she gets separated from her sister to showing up at the Virgil, and then it like goes back to how she got there in the first place after she like quote unquote kills everybody, and like how she learned how to fight and stuff like that, and then it goes back to like Maria's point of view and like how she ended up at the Virgil, and then like it's very clear that she made some form of deal with the devil because she's got the earrings. They like like tease to those that it's like if you get the earrings and you're still alive, like obviously you're one of them, you're a part of them, you're a part of the family. And so like she clearly has made it a part of the family now, but then it's like you figure out how that deal occurred in the first place, like how she's still alive and things like that. And that was really interesting. But it's just I don't even know where to start. Like this movie is just so funny and hilarious. I've never heard my dad laugh so much while watching. Well, that's not true, but it's been a really long time since I've heard my dad laugh so much while watching a movie. Like this movie was just so over the top, and it starts off so serious, and then you get to the Virgil, and it's the stupidest fucking shit in the world. Like the first, like after you get through the awkwardness and like the first guy like being super duper creepy when trying to take her, like she cuts Tom Felton's head off, and it's just the funniest shit in the world, and the blood sprays out in the most ridiculous over the top way. It's very Monty Python and the Holy Grail sort of blood spray that occurs, and it happens with like all the characters because they get killed over and over and over and over again because they're all immortal. And I loved that. It's so over the top, and it's so stupid, and I found it just so entertaining. Like this is the over the top and stupidity that I wish Cold Storage had. I was like, if Cold Storage had the kind of balls to make something as dumb and stupid as They Will Kill You, I would have loved it so much more. But like it just didn't work with that movie. This movie is just it's so great. Like I have like very small tiny complaints, and that's it. But like other than that, it's like the acting's so over the top and funny. The chemistry's great between the actors. The special effects is stupid. Like the visual effects, like the CG is a little like lackluster at some points. Like the pig looks fairly fake, but like I don't expect much. It's a talking pig. Like, I feel like it's hard to make that look incredibly hyper realistic. And I loved the cinematography. I thought it was great. Like, they have a good use of the vertigo shot. There's one part which I absolutely loved, which is a mixture of, like, good cinematography and set design, where Asia is, like, crawling through the, like, crawl space. And I think one of the characters was falling after her, but it like zooms out, and so you get an elongated version of that crawl space, and then the other character behind her like crawling after her as well, and it worked so well, and it looked so cool, and I absolutely just loved that. But then there's the bit with the eyeball where, because it's like you learn that like there could be a slight speck of skin on someone and they'll still grow back to their normal size. And you get the like dumb stupidity of one of the characters like essentially having a shrunken head because her head gets blown off, but her eyeball like follows Asia around for like part of the film, and it's so stupid at first. Like it's just rolling, 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 and then you get to like a part where Asia and another character are like crawling up, like in a crawl space, and you're like, "There's no way in hell that this like eyeball's gonna make it up, and then it does, and it's so stupid because like bounces off the walls and then goes up, and then like the decapitated head is trying to explain to Tom Felton's character like what floor Asia's on, so they're like trying to be suggestive, being like they're on the fuck floor. Like they're on the fuck floor, and it's so fucking stupid and so funny at the same time. And I love this movie for that. I was intrigued to see how it ended because it's about Asia trying to find her sister and essentially like making up for abandoning her 10 years prior, and finds her like working at the Virgil. And so like I wasn't quite sure how it was going to end, because it's like Asia has to be this sacrificed, or there has to be some form of human sacrifice, but if Maria betrays them, then she's going to be the one that ends up dying. And so I was interested to see how this movie ended. It's like, is it gonna end? I didn't think it would end like sad or whatever, but I was curious to see how it ended. And the ending is just so over the top and stupid, and I loved it, where it's just like Maria sacrifices herself for her sister, but then like Asia, you know, fucks them all up by essentially burning the pig head to erase their names and killing all of them, thus being able to resurrect her own sister. And I thought that was so ridiculous, but I loved it so much. I loved the fight sequences, and I loved the camera movements. It's very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's sort of like following Asia around, where it's not necessarily POV, but it sort of like follows the weapons and the fighting movements more than the actual characters themselves, and I really liked that. I thought it was cool. My one, I guess technically it's two complaints, but like my very small tiny complaints were, I thought that the sound design was a little strange. Like it was loud, like too loud at some instances, and kind of weird. There's a scene where Asia enters the Virgil in the first place, and she's got her roller bag, and the roller bag is like really loud and squeaky, and it took me a second to realize that it's from her suitcase, and I'm like, a suitcase would never squeak that loudly, and I found it so incredibly distracting. So the sound design gets a little too loud in some instances. And then my second complaint, and it's not really, it is kind of a complaint, I didn't really care for the soundtrack, and that has, I think, less to do, it's a weird soundtrack for the movie, but it sounds exactly like the soundtrack to the Loki show. And so I was very confused, but it's not by the same composer, because I waited. I was like, is it by the same composer? It is not. And I was like, that is strange that like it sounds so much like the soundtrack to the Loki show, and yet it's not even by the same composer. And it was just a weird choice for this movie in the first place. I was like, this is a horror movie. These sounds and this music doesn't feel like it belongs there. It's not necessarily like it strictly belongs in sci-fi, but it definitely doesn't belong in a movie about a satanic cult. It definitely doesn't belong there, but I thought it was just really distracting. But I loved the added on like pop music that they added into it. So they included those in basically like every single hardcore fight scene, and that was great. I absolutely loved it. I love the dynamic between the sisters, because it's like they haven't seen each other in a really long time, but like at one point Maria's like, how did you learn how to fight? And Asia's just like, prison. And I thought that was so great. Oh my god, this movie is so stinking funny and like awesome, and I loved it so much. I just found it so entertaining. I feel like I mentioned this in a previous review, although I think technically speaking this review is going to come out before that one, but I've just watched so many shitty horror movies this year. Like there are a couple exceptions to that rule, but I've watched a lot of really shitty horror movies, and I think I was just so disappointed in Scream 7, because Scream 7 is supposed to be a horror comedy, but I didn't find it that funny. But this is a horror comedy. Like this shit was hilarious. Like it's so funny. I think like in terms of Scream, it's supposed to be a mixture of like funny and scary, and this is just over the top stupid. But it's just like I said earlier, like this is what I wanted Cold Storage to be, like over the top stupid, and like Cold Storage writers didn't have big enough balls to do that, I guess. But I guess the writers for They Will Kill You did. Like they clearly didn't take this movie seriously, and that's what I love about it. It's like it's supposed to be insanely stupid. Like clearly they're like, what if we made Ready or Not but with a more obvious like satanic cult line, and the main character already basically knew how to fight and was just there to fuck things up, and there was more blood. Because I was telling my dad about this when we left the theater, because I sort of remember when Ready or Not, like the first movie, was advertised there. Like, we've got these blood cannons, and there's going to be blood everywhere, and it's going to be a lot. And then I watched the movie last night, and I was like, it's not that bloody. It's really not. And in this one, it's like, it's bloody. Like, blood gets sprayed fucking everywhere. And that's like what I wanted, is I wanted it like that, like a silly, funny, bloody movie where like the main protagonist kicks absolute ass against this weird satanic cult. And I loved that about this movie. And I loved the fact that they're not even subtle about the satanic cult thing. Like, it zooms into like the top of the building that literally has a pentagram on it, and then it like goes down to the door which has like some form of like your mural that's got like Satan on it and stuff like that, and then you enter the main floor, and the doors like have these giant huge locks, and you're like, these rich white people are like way too nice to Asia, like it's hella sketch, and you're like, yeah, because she's gonna fucking die. And I thought that was just absolutely ridiculous. I loved this movie so much. It was just so fun. Like, it was just a fun movie. It's like a turn your brain off kind of movie, but I was laughing throughout the whole thing, and I was so entertained by everything. And it's just, I liked having fun while watching a movie. I feel like I haven't had that experience a lot lately, especially when going to see movies. Like, a lot of the movies that I've been seeing lately, I just haven't liked. So I'm glad that I finally got to watch a movie that I did enjoy. So, yeah, there's that. I think those are all my thoughts. Let me know if you've seen They Will Kill You and what you thought of it, because you know my thoughts. I thought this movie was hilarious. But yeah, let me know what you thought of it. Like, subscribe. Bye bye.